This is what we are. We are IAM.
Turn on, wait. On. How's everyone doing? Good morning.
We don't share a surname, by the way. I just don't announce my surname. So he's Duncan Harrison, I'm Elijah.
Yeah. I've got a surname. Yes, I'm Duncan. I'm from Crack Magazine. As it's been said, the magazine is in all your tote bags, so pick up, read it. It's amazing, amazing magazine. Thanks to everyone at IAM for inviting us here. We were basically had a call a couple of months ago, and we were invited to kind of host an interview at the event with an artist or someone from music that we felt was interested in the kind of dialogue of the weekend and just had interesting things to say. Full stop. No pressure. This is Elijah. So should we play the video first to put what you do in a bit of context, and then I'll say some more things about you. Let's roll the video first.
I first heard of them when I was about 12. I used to think, what's this funny label called Butterz? Elijah and Skillian were these two kind of young, excited guys who had started up a label and had somehow kind of found all this great new music to put out. When the label first started, Grime was in a bit of a stale period.
Years and years ago, Grime was sort of a restricted genre.
We've kind of opened it up where anyone can make it, but it still was London focused.
If you're a young teen in London, yeah, there's certain generic views that everyone's going to have on certain things, innit? And you express them in certain ways.
I lick down, walk in a room, tell a man sit down. When I touch my gal, get hormonal, and then when I bring their tits out. But I don't wanna see no tits out, I wanna see the whole rave floor skits out. Blood went so hard in the set that the rave went mad and I got kicked out.
I'm very versatile, like I don't like to stick to one or put myself in a box. I just like to say, yeah, I'm a producer, I make whatever I want to do, depends on like the mood I'm in.
What we do is progressive, it morphs, it changes.
The originators of Grime weren't producers. It was guys like myself from the end.
Cool. So that gives you a good snapshot of Butterz, which is the Grime music label. We're still in the dark. The Grime music label that Elijah founded in 2010 with Skillian, and it was like there was a regular show on Rinse FM, which is like a community-based radio station in London. Which kind of took off from there, I suppose. So let's start, I guess, by just talking. There was a lot of talk yesterday about like post-work and that kind of thing. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the sort of DIY mentality of Grime and like what that's meant for you?
So I started the label in 2010. I kind of just finished university. It was credit crunch time, and I'd always listened to Grime and kind of underground music from London, and I kind of saw opportunity to take it as a career, because what I was kind of being offered at the time was like really low level work. I remember getting told like I was unemployable when I finished like university, got a degree, and I was a bit like in a crossroads with life, and I thought I could do something with music and all this art that was in front of me that I thought could be lifted, and that's kind of where the DIY label started.
Yeah, and kind of in terms of post-label was something we talked about a lot yesterday, but in a very literal sense, I guess the operation that you've got is post-label from a kind of musical perspective and the way you've operated. How do you think that sort of like spirit of independence and stuff has become more established, and like do you think it's become something that people are interested in commercially now as well?
Like for me and for a lot of people, it's just out of necessity. It's not like a choice. So people are not like, I'm independent. Yeah. I don't really feel that. It's just you want to make things and share them, and this is the most practical way to do it. And like retaining ownership at first was like a pleasure, and then later on we realized it was a necessity, and like our advantage long term of like having these things. So all those artists that are on the label, like I don't own their music. Like they own their music. Like Black Butterz is like a platform, and I don't want to like just repeat things of the old kind of music industry.
But it definitely started off as a necessity.
Yeah.
That then became, because when people talk about grime now, and usually it's people like Crack Magazine and stuff, but like when they talk about grime now, it's like a thing of the independence, and the DIY thing is one of the most really interesting things about it, and it's like a real defining factor of like the character and spirit of the genre. But it definitely started out as just a total necessity as a means to an end.
Yeah, so it started out like on pirate radio in London, which is illegal. So I started on Rinse FM when it was pirate. So it was, if you got caught broadcasting, you'd be arrested. You know, you'd be given like a caution. My partner, Skillian, was cautioned by the police because he got caught on pirate radio when he was younger.
Yeah.
So it's like a criminal offence. But now, like that, we don't need that to get heard by people. So we've totally moved away from radio and that idea. And just
so yeah, Rinse FM is now an online radio station.
Yeah, so it's still got the FM, but it's like got a community license, so it's legal.
What do you think, like, if anything? I mean, it's something that like has been talked about a lot this weekend. The kind of the balancing act between independence and also commercial opportunities and endeavours, and trying to find profit and commerce and DIY stuff. Like, what do you think major labels or major operations, if anything, could learn from the way you guys operated?
When brands and like big companies reach out to us, it's usually at the last point. It's always because we want to do something with grime.
Yeah.
Here are the ideas.
Yeah.
And you are going to be the person to put it in front of people. Whereas if we caught the idea at the idea stage, it could have been something totally like greater than what it actually ends up being. So like there was like a recent thing. I don't know if anyone works for Nike here, but there's like a whole song dedicated to one of their shoes. And it was just like,
shout out to Nike. If
I don't know why they would do that, but everyone likes their product.
Yeah.
So there would be no need to ever make a song about it. But if you involved like all of us, like from the start of that, whatever that idea was in the first place,
they
would have made something like much better.
Do you think like it's an interesting one where like brands, I think it has probably it does feel more prevalent now in the age of like the internet and access to information and stuff. Do you think there is a culture of brands kind of cherry picking parts of other cultures that they'd like to kind of get a slice off for promotional means?
Yes, and like we as a scene and artists and whatever we're doing, we need it as well because we need income, and it's not just like coming from sales these days.
Yeah.
So we have to be practical too. So like I know some people have worked with brands out of the fear of saying no to something.
Right. Okay.
So they even they think it's a bad idea, but actually at the same time they need to pay their bills. So I can't like just go out cussing people that work with brands.
Do you think like how do you negotiate it though in your own head as a creative? Like what's the criteria for like for what you say yes to and what you say no to in terms of like the bigger, more brand led opportunities? Or do you just say yes to everything?
No, believe it or not. Like I say, it's been involved in creation of the idea for me anyway. Like it would be great like to turn up to a sick idea and like a pot of money at the end.
Yeah, it'd
maybe
be amazing.
Like I don't know what the best brand situation is for people here, but I just prefer to be involved in the creative process.
Yeah,
like from the start. And if like I don't work at any company, or I've never been an insider, so I've never worked in an office or anything. So me learning from them would actually do a lot for like our creative scene too. So I can bring back, information that I've got from Red Bull or whoever, if I've been involved from
back to the scene,
and then vice versa.
So I'm interested in that because one of the things, you said some interesting stuff about like job titles that we were talking about, and like you said, you've never really worked in an office, and you were at one point quote unquote unemployable. Not from my point of view, but so like what's your relationship like with kind of titles and stuff? Because you're it's not up there, but you're the associate artistic director of an initiative called Lighthouse. Yeah, tell us a bit about that.
I think for me personally, because I don't ever turn off like from my like work and my being.
Yeah.
It'd be like a better description of who I am is who I am, and then you'll be able to work out what my work is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So like saying like everyone here is an artist in some form or fashion, right? Like,
yeah.
Most people would say, all right, you know, what I do is art related, or they're producer. Like, how diverse is that word, producer or creative director? Like, doesn't, I mean, but
do you think we like, could you ever see it that we'd end up existing at a point where, like, particularly in music or the creative field, where like titles do begin to kind of erode and people don't really, because even at the magazine we swap titles around fairly regularly.
What's your title?
Last time, no, I know, creative content manager. Okay. You know?
Yeah. So if it's nothing to do with content, it's nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, this is what I'm saying. So do you think that you could do you think that you could get to a point where, like, you know, those sort of traditional ideas of like labeling and that kind of thing move away, and people are just especially in creative fields, are just operating and kind of being defined off their work as opposed to some sort of label or title?
That's for organizations to decide, because I'm outside them. So when I come in sometimes and someone says they're the content creation manager, I'm just confused. I'm just like,
yeah, me too.
I'm just, oh, what's the end point to like what you're doing, or what's the beginning? And then I would have a better understanding, or like, what's the long-term aim of what you're doing? And then I'd get a better idea. But maybe like you have to start that one and not me.
So in terms of in terms of you being a sort of independent musician, creative, label owner, associate artistic director.
Okay, these are all the same things.
Yeah.
So I just see that as an artist. But those are things that are just part of being an artist.
Yeah.
Now,
so do you see the business side of what you do in terms of organizing, like, you know, you have artists that you look after, obviously they do their own thing, but you have some sort of, you know, role there, and like you have your own music, there's nights, and like, do you see the financial work in the same sort of lens that you would view like a DJ set to a certain extent?
Well, there's different values on all those things. Like, if I only did things that made me money, then I wouldn't make any money, because I didn't start doing this for money in the first place.
Right.
So it's like a weird thing. Like, the things that I'm most known for, I never made any money from. So I should I should do more of that, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll still end up getting paid somehow anyway, right? Because that's what's in my heart.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me. Like,
no, it's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the Lighthouse kind of project, and like how that came about, and what the sort of the Arts Council project that you're sort of directing, what that is, and like what you're looking into and that kind of thing. If you want to just tell the people.
Okay. So the Arts Council in England are funding 20 different projects to promote new artistic directors to come from different backgrounds. I don't really know anything about the arts world until recently. I only started in January. So they wanted like more black, more disabled, more women people to be heading up these organizations. And they invited me to pitch for what I would do over the next 12 months.
Okay, I didn't realize you had to pitch.
Yeah, so
right.
I had to pitch for funding, and what I did was like a project based on like club culture, because a lot of the places that I've been playing in the past 5-6 years have been closing, and how that's been affecting artists, like financially, like creatively. Like, I wanted to look into that, like how it's gonna, you know, develop going forward. And I was in a meeting with them on Wednesday, and I kind of said to them that I looked at the kind of application incorrectly, but you still gave me the money. I thought they wanted someone like me to recognize who was going to be the next artistic director. It's not actually me. And they were like,
accidentally got a job.
No, I thought the job was to look for those people.
Right, okay.
And that's what I'm going to still try and do. I don't, it was kind of crazy. So, because the 21-year-old me that was finishing university, I didn't look at the kind of arts world as like a career at all, because I'd been geared from young to just get my studies and go and get a proper job, quote unquote. I didn't see like all of this as even like a possibility at all. And I know what it's like, seeing someone like you doing things that you would like to do is like a belief thing.
Yeah, so
It gives people encouragement to like, actually, you know what, like, let me carry on making my tunes or doing my art. That could be like a real like thing that turns into a career.
Yeah, I guess in the interests of utopias, do you think that like visibility in situations like that is something that can really, really inspire belief in young people and that kind of thing?
100%.
Yeah.
If you don't see people that look like you in places that you're looking, you don't even think that you can be there. Like you don't have the right to be there. And that affects your like life decisions. Like that affected what I studied for like 3 years at university. If I thought that I could, be like sitting somewhere like here, I wouldn't have wasted time like doing a marketing degree. Do you know what I'm saying? Or like trying to like apply for jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like if I had that belief as an 18-year-old in not just in myself, but in the ability that places like here would welcome me.
Right.
Then I would have had a completely different trajectory.
And I guess because it's an interesting discussion about like how to sort of organize visibility in industry and like how to, is it something that should be based on a quota or should there just be, efforts made as and when and that kind of thing. And like the commodification of activism and diversity is something that's been talked about quite a lot this weekend. I know there was like a few sly nods to the Pepsi advert yesterday. Shout out to Revolution. But yeah, like, what's your thoughts on that? Like in terms of how do you think that efforts to kind of create change should be organized? It's a big question. I apologize.
It is. And even I meet people all the time that think diversity as a word is a problem.
Right, okay. Speak on that.
Because the basic premise is that we are all different and it shouldn't be, okay, you're white male and then everything else is different from you. It should be like your story, my story, that story, that story, that story, that story, that story, that story. Yeah. And it shouldn't be just diversity from you. So I can see why that's causing and has caused so many problems.
Yeah.
And like, I get into a lot of situations where, I'll go for a meeting and they'll say, we need to do this in a diverse way. And then I realize I'm the only black guy there. I'm like, okay.
So I guess off of that then, like, it's an interesting discussion because as we saw in the video, Butterz was kind of founded at a time where grime music and the scene in London was still moving, but there was less of a public interest and there was less of a mainstream audience for it. That's since changed quite dramatically. So I don't know if people who might not know, like in the last, say, would you say 5 years?
Like 3 years, like Skepta won a Mercury last year. A guy called Stormzy had like a #1 album on his own label this year. These things are like rare. Like blue moons are happening.
So just this week, actually, Boy Better Know, which is like the kind of one of the really, really central like grime crews from the history of the culture, announced like a full one-day takeover of London's O2 Arena. So suddenly the interest is like that would have never even been dreamt of like 7 or 8 years ago. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that in terms of, because it is, if you look at the history of the music and the history of the culture, it is like, it's a counter-cultural thing and it's a subculture that came from like certain communities in London. And it's now, because of like #1 albums and big shows at the O2 Arena, the audiences are very, very diverse and they spread out far wider than just that culture and those people. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's dangers with that, or do you think it's a positive thing?
Grime's quite unique because like it's been protected. Like the top artists in it are still those people from that background. Like people always ask me about appropriation a lot. Like even if there's like a video of someone different MCing, people get upset. And but the top artists are still like coming from like deprived areas. The top producers are still like people that didn't go to music college or to St. Martin's or anything like that.
Right.
There isn't like, even the word privilege is fucking problematic on so many different levels. Ask me that afterwards. Yeah?
I will, I promise.
All right, cool.
Let me just make a note.
There isn't like any person really at the top of our music from a like privileged background, quote unquote. Even though I think we all are privileged as kids of like immigrants in England with like food and water and everything. Like, because I go to places all the time where I'm getting looked at as the privilege. So sometimes when we're calling, sorry, like you I'm privileged, so it's mad. I'm like, we're privileged too, you know. Like we've definitely got an advantage over like even like the black kids in France or the black kids in Germany because we've been in the country so long and got our culture on the map in a completely different way. We like the Grime thing has helped so much. Sorry.
Yeah, what were we talking about before? My note now is ask about privilege.
Kind of fuck that question for you.
No, it's cool. I just looping back then to like the danger of the appropriation debate is something that's like obviously talked about an awful lot, and like there was a interesting incident with the Evening Standard recently, which is a London newspaper. Do you want to tell the story, or should I tell the story? Actually,
you tell the story, and then
you need to explain. If you explain what a reload is, and then I'll tell the story.
No, I'm going to do this in like 5 seconds. All right. So the Evening Standard gave a review of Skepta, who's like a big MC, his concert, and he reloaded one of the tracks. That means started again halfway during the track. And in the review, it said this was a mistake.
Technical difficulties.
There were technical difficulties during the show. And actually, it was deliberate. And there's something that's been going on in our music culture from 50 years ago, from Jamaica, ska, reggae, dancehall, hip-hop, garage, house, drum and bass, jungle, up to here. And that some simple bit of like knowledge that wasn't there shows sometimes the disconnect between us and them. But on our part, it's not like I want to like educate as well.
Yeah.
So when things are going to like 10,000 people at once, maybe we need to...
There's going to be one dude that doesn't know what a reload is.
Exactly. So we need to take a breath and go, actually, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call a reload. And this is where it comes from. And maybe that should be in the music as well. Sometimes, like, you know, we need to make a point of that, like explaining the cultural connections of these things. Like people sometimes surprised, like when I address myself as a Jamaican, they're like, oh, but you're from Hackney. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, but I'm still connected to, my parents are from Jamaica and they came to England. Like, I'm first generation. And sometimes I have to like reiterate that in my work and in the music and show that. And yeah, so reloads and things like that will keep happening, misunderstandings.
I'm interested in your thing. You talked about it a lot here, and like before we came out, like you've made sort of an interesting effort to try and gain new perspectives and meet people outside of the immediate kind of circle and scene that you exist in. Yeah, just like because Elijah has a fairly big kind of social media following, I think, within your circle. And did you kind of experience any of the sort of echo chamber stuff? Is that what prompted you to go out and try and meet new people, or was it just something sort of its own?
I'm just like an inquisitive person. I'm interested in loads of different things. Like I've like become known from DJing Grime in London, but then I was always interested in different things before that, like just a normal human being. And obviously the opportunities that I got from traveling meant that I was naturally being connected with different artists, different people, like that I would have never met if it wasn't for music. Like I never traveled before, like 22. I used to go to Jamaica in the summer, and then up until about 2010, that's when I started, you know, getting to, even just to go to Europe, I was like, whoa, like meeting Parisians. I'd never been to Paris before I did music, or like to Tokyo or something, and like really like made effort and took time. I wasn't going there and playing gigs and then leaving like a celebrity DJ, which I'm not, but like, I tried to make effort to spend time in places, eat what people eat, listen to what people listen to, and filter that back into like what I'm doing as a label owner and as an artist and whatever.
Do you think that young people of today are like feel empowered to do that in general? Do you think they could be more encouraged to like have a sort of, you know, essential curiosity, I guess? And
yeah, it's there on Instagram, isn't it? It's there.
You think that's what? Do you think that the internet's kind of helped facilitate that, and social media has?
Yeah, I think if 14-year-old me with Instagram would be definitely following people from like Korea and Tokyo and Congo and Atlanta. So there would be like even more curiosity because you could see what's happening daily.
Yeah.
Like I remember when we grew up, like people would say, "Oh, I'd love to go to Japan one day," and people still say that now, and I think, why? They wouldn't even be able to tell you what they would want to see in particular. They're like, "Oh, I like manga." Do you know what I mean? This is like this weird kind of inquisitive thing. But nowadays, you see so much into these worlds that people go, "Yeah, I need to go to Zaire, man. I've been seeing this mad stuff. I watched this thing on Vice." Like, just the inquisitive, like people are really interested, and that's good. And our music and art should be reflecting that.
In terms of, it's a nice joiner onto, in terms of like your art reflecting that, you were kind of one of the first DJs to pick up on, well, I guess to pick up on the following that Grime has in Japan. What was that? Do you want to just run through that? Because Elijah wrote a piece for Crack Magazine maybe 2 years ago about the process of him kind of taking Grime over to Japan and experiencing it over there. What was that kind of journey like?
So from the radio show that I was doing, I was getting sent music from all around the world, but there was like a period of time where I was getting music from beats in particular from Japan, and I was like, cool. But when I started hearing MCs MCing on the music that, you know, I grew up with, I found that kind of interesting. I was like, wow, they're MCing on Grime in Japanese. I need to connect with them somehow. And then when I went to Tokyo for the first time, I linked up with, I think it was 8 different MCs that are from all over Japan, and we did like a set together. So in Grime, you know, there's a culture of everyone would pass the mic over different beats, and DJ will be playing, like mixing tunes together, and they'll MC for like 40 minutes altogether, kind of like maybe what early hip hop is like.
Yeah, like round tables and stuff.
Yeah, so people will be passing the mic.
Like cypher sessions.
Yeah, like all of us, and we will be like, when someone is doing well, this reload thing would happen in a set and stuff. But a few
technical difficulties.
Yeah, exactly. One of the sets went, I put it on the internet and people chopped it up, and they got millions of views. And this is something that isn't or wasn't being like, you know, welcomed where they were. They were just doing it. It was not something that was like necessarily big. They were just doing it, sharing it with each other online. And then when it actually went out, and then we did a documentary, a Boiler Room, it got them recognition in their own ends. So like me going there helped them just start their own thing, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think off of that then, like, one thing that was written about a lot and like the themes for this weekend is like, how can we sort of empower young people to sort of like follow their passions, and like how can the internet be harnessed in a way that like makes young people feel empowered and ready to follow their passions and do their own thing and kind of stay independent. What sort of advice would you have? Because I guess the game was slightly different when it first started. I don't know. Yeah, what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I grew up with seeing like art and anything creative as like a side hustle. Right. Something that you do after you've done your maths and English, and obviously those things are important. But I don't think it was like harnessed by school or college up to university level.
You don't think there was enough creative encouragement?
No, and everything was always looked at economic benefit. Like I come from London and everything's expensive, and it's like, oh, there's no point doing it because it will make no money. Yeah. Which is it cuts out a lot of people from the arts world, as we know.
Yeah.
And it hasn't, I don't know. Where do we go with that? That's like another lecture in itself.
Yeah.
Like if we encourage more people, then you're gonna have a more diverse thing in it.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's an interesting one then, I suppose, like in terms of young people now with like you said, with social media and stuff, and like there's definitely more of a curiosity, I guess, among young people, which is good. Like if you sort of I don't know, how do you think your culture and grime is like viewed by a lot of people? Do you get a lot of responses and that kind of thing? Like, have you enjoyed with the new interest, seeing like other people's perspectives on what you do?
I think a lot of people like the novelty of it.
Yeah.
Like, but they want the thing to stay as it is, as pure as possible, and it's not possible because London is changing as well. So like where even like pirate radio, it's like it's not prominent in the scene at all anymore. So like we're gonna have these guys like from the ends, or you know what I mean, from the private areas making tunes with people from Lagos.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be seen as not grime because they went to Lagos to do a tune.
So there is a certain like borderlessness to it.
Yeah, definitely. But it's exciting because it's new. Like when, just for a bit of like, like I said, when I was growing up, I didn't even leave London. Like I remember like when we used to talk about up north, it would be like up north London.
Really?
Yeah. So I'd say, oh, I'm going up north, and people were like, yeah, like Tottenham. I'm going down south. I'm going Brixton.
Yeah.
Like that's how small, like as big as London is, how small your world can be if, like, you're not even putting together money for travel costs, or like not even thinking outside the box. I mean,
and just to, we've got a bit of time, so I might ask you one final question and then see if anyone's got any questions out here. Just to bring it back to the IRL.
Yes.
Smooth. What's the kind of this operation that you started, like with some peers and friends independently? How has it, in a kind of real sense, made differences in your life and the lives of your peers?
Well, so the main people that I work with, do I have to like say their background and race? Does that,
if you think it's relevant, yeah. I don't know.
Because people are talking like all the time. People are always explaining to me like their race and like, oh, I'm white and middle class, like protected. But that's fine. Like the background that I come from, like I said, I come from a Jamaican household. My partner, Skilliam, he's come from a Ghanaian one. Different already, like very different value system, even though obviously respect is there. He's like religious. I'm not. Flavor D, when we met her, she was living in a women's refuge. She's openly out, which is, I see women commend her for being like in this, male-dominated scene.
Yeah.
Being out, being herself. I've seen people go up to her and say like the difference that makes to them, seeing someone like her just being out.
Right.
How powerful that is as a statement.
Yeah.
But not even realizing the other difficulties that she's had in the past 4 years. Yeah. And now, she's got a passport now, she can travel and has like really like grown into like a completely different person. Like, it's really changed her life, music. And she's come from a working class background as well, if that matters.
And you said like, because you're obviously, as we just talked about earlier, like you're in a period of your life where you are trying to like just find new perspectives and learn new things, and there's something that you want to share with your peers.
Yeah, I think sometimes maybe it's like this in all pursuits. Like we don't take time enough to just unplug and learn about other things. Like particularly when you're a struggling artist, it's hard to take time to just learn new things because you need to pay your bills. I found that like a lot of my peers actually don't even think about that at all. They just make gig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Depression, drugs.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of sleep. And no, seriously, it's like, and it's making people have like these like 3-year careers, blow out, and then rehab. It's not right. There's like hopefully like better ways of doing it. But like if I could invite more of my peers to something like this, like just to have a fucking day off and listen to some other people's perspectives, like it would definitely help. If it's not the music, the wellness, and just their mental health.
Definitely. In the interest of listening to other people, does anyone have any questions? That was smooth. Anyone?
You didn't give them enough time.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, has anyone got any questions at all they'd like to ask before we wrap up? We have a bit of time.
Did you hear the question, everyone?
I heard it.
So,
oh no.
Sorry, you asked about so like Stormzy is an artist that's just come out in London with a new album. He talks about having depression on that album, which it should be just standard, right? That these days that people talk about their mental health because that's what an album is. It should be like your thoughts and what's going on in your life. But it's been celebrated in the UK as something that's helping break down taboos.
Yeah. I think one of the sort of narratively people thought it was important for a black working class artist to come out because there's a lot of stigma against depression in those communities.
100%. I mean, like try and find a community that there isn't that at all. Like I don't know. We do have a problem with that, like diagnosing anything, whether that's like testicular cancer or like mental health, like all these things. But like you would find that in most. Like with Stormzy in particular, what I found was interesting was like the themes about God throughout the album. Like I haven't heard anyone talk about it that much in the music, even though people grow up with it in their life. It's so strange that people cut that out because maybe they don't know how to get across in the music or it's uncool. He just didn't care. And
he did a really good job of, you know, the album's called Gang Signs and Prayer, and there's a nice mix of the two.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like, I love Stormzy, so, like, I love what he stands for. Like, so he released this album on his own label with his team. His manager is his brethren. It is his brethren. Fuck it. If you don't know what it means, I'll tell you afterwards. He released it with his manager, who is his brethren, and they went to #1. They got onto the Brit Awards, like performing. They just broke a lot of molds that people say you can't get to without a major label or without that kind of backing. He's done it a different way, and that's always like exciting to see.
Yeah, well, he speaks a lot. I mean, you were saying before, he speaks a lot about if they don't let you in the building, infiltrate.
No, I didn't say that.
No, that's what Stormzy says.
Oh.
And we were talking before about building your own paths and like finding...
Yeah, he just built his own building, and now people come to him.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Like, he doesn't need to go anywhere. People come to him to talk.
Yeah.
And like, that's his flex. Like, and it doesn't need to, like, it's just one, it's not even Stormzy related, but independent success isn't just like being #1 and being seen, okay, you've done something that the majors do. Like, being an independent success is, first of all, like just doing what you like. You don't even necessarily have to make a living at doing it if you like, being able to support yourself, you know, maybe helping others, being a good person. That's like an independent success to me. And even being able to do it for a long time. Like, you might not ever be like on the Brit Awards. I don't think you're ever going to see me on TV anytime soon. But that wouldn't like our success. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be like something that generates millions of pounds or anything to be seen as that, man. I don't want that parameter, otherwise we're fucked, man.
Yeah. Is there probably got time for one more question? Oh. Good question.
Short answer, no. Because it's down to the person. Like I don't want people to who are not politically aware or informed to be telling masses of people what to do with their vote. Like I'd love to sit down with all of these guys and really establish why we're just saying to vote Corbyn. Is there like been like a meeting with everyone that I just didn't get invited to? I don't know. Like, or why we just automatically back Labour, and this is not anything to do with the Conservatives. Like, why we have decided that as a scene, and if someone is actually saying something different, how do we treat them? Because if someone says these are the reasons I vote for the Conservatives, then they'll get chastised. When that's like that, that's not. That'd be shit. If they couldn't justify it, you know what I mean? And sometimes with music and art and stuff, people obviously want it to be political all the time. But then sometimes for me, like I need a space where no one is gonna ask me about Brexit. You know what I mean? Like if you come to my rave and mention Brexit, you need to get the fuck out, man. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about that any other time.
Brexit talk at the rave.
Yeah, but if it's 10 to 6 and we've had a couple tequilas, there's, you know what I mean? That's what we're trying to do as well. It's like give people a space to not think about that stuff for a minute. And that's not like a bad thing. Yeah. Even though I'm someone that is politically aware and engaged. But I definitely need time out and time off.
Yeah, unplug.
Yeah.
One more question. Did you have one? Yeah, done from.
I think in general with these things, if you can imagine it, it's first of all, that's not gonna happen necessarily, but someone else is gonna come and just do something mad. That's every time someone does something new, I just get excited.
Yeah.
Like I don't necessarily like imagine a future where music, say like we talk about VR, like how a musician's gonna use VR. I don't know. But how we're imagining it right now, some kid, whatever, in Kenya is gonna just flip it on his head and change it for everyone. And that's what I'm excited about. I'm not thinking about the
just wait till it lands.
Yeah, just wait till it lands. I don't think it's going to be me that does it. And that's kind of exciting as well. I'm not sitting here with the strategy, but the future of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
Me neither. All right, well, I think that's us. Thanks for coming out, man. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Yeah, cheers. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
In randomness, we trust.